while we are rolling into fall, those hot temperatures are still here, and many of you may have been noticing that your tires may not be lasting quite as long. How did I do there, Jack?
I think you did good.
Okay, yeah, very good. And I bring that up to say that pretty soon we might be spending even more money for tires. And and by the way, tires are already expensive, not just here in California, but across the nation due to obviously some issues with the economy right now, tariffs, the price of gas also impacts
I've
tire
had to get new tires
prices.
here in the past few months or so. Bad timing.
Yeah, I know. I've actually been
That's how it
putting
always
off.
goes with car maintenance, isn't
I know.
it?
And the worst part is, like, I am basically at the point where when I went to go get my last rotation, they told me, like, we're not going to rotate your tires because you need new ones, but you don't, like, need them. So, like, I've just been, like, basically...
You're, like, in this weird, like, purgatory right now.
Yeah,
Where you
I
just
hate
gotta,
when you
like...
get... Well, because to me, it's just like, all right, I'm not going to pay for a rotation. Then I guess I'm just going to drive these tires into the ground.
You might as well.
Now, I could end up paying even more for tires than had I just gotten brand new tires when they were at level 5. Now, when I go in at level 3, they're going to be like, oh, joke's on you, buddy. Yeah, new state policy is out now, Jack.
Yes, that's right.
That's our top story here of the day, and it is likely going to have a impact on the price of tires starting in 2029, so a bit of good news for my wallet. California is now the first state in the nation to do something like this, where we will be regulating replacement tires. You may be wondering what those are. Well, News 8 State Matters political reporter Jenny Hull is going to explain that, the reason why this is passing, as well as some of the criticism.
In a unanimous vote, the 5-member California Energy Commission decided to advance this regulation, which has been in the works since 2003. They say this will help Californians save on gas. Others argue Californians could be forced to spend hundreds more on tires.
The state's going to make the decision. In the long run, it's only going to come back to the consumer.
Eli Montero is the lead mechanic at a local Sacramento tire and auto repair shop. Montero says the replacement tire efficiency standard just approved by California will force businesses like his to buy new compliant tires. Those costs will be passed on to consumers.
The way they want to change things up so quickly is a little harsh on the pocket.
But some state energy leaders are pitching the standard as a way for Californians to save nearly $1 billion yearly in gas and electricity while simultaneously reducing carbon emissions.
Given the gas prices of the last, few years, we felt like we really need to act on this. We need to give our consumers some relief. If we can get better fuel efficiency from our cars, then we cut tailpipe emissions, which means air is cleaner instantly.
And so starting in 2029, all replacement tires sold for passenger vehicles and light-duty trucks in California must have the same fuel efficiency as the original tires with which you drive off the lot, meaning they must be designed to offer the same mileage and range.
We're ensuring that you're going to get that same fuel efficiency. So really, all we're doing is helping consumers.
The CEC says that means 70% of current tires will have to be modified by 2033. The agency says in Phase 1, consumers will pay about $6 more for a set of tires, but save about $85 in gas over a life of a set of tires. And in Phase 2, about $26 more per set and $179 in savings. But opponents say at the end of the day, Californians pay more.
Up here, they said there was an affordability crisis. They would tackle the affordability crisis. What happened to that?
State Senator Tony Strickland is vice chair of the Senate Transportation Committee. Back in 2003, he also voted no on AB 844, the bill that allowed the California Energy Commission to establish these replacement tire efficiency standards. In June, Strickland and a bipartisan group of legislators urged a delay in the implementation of the replacement tire efficiency program, noting shortfalls in cost effectiveness, among other concerns.
In our 50-year history of doing energy efficiency standards at the California Energy Commission, we've never done a standard that did not have some industry opposition. But we have to make decisions that are in the best interest of the public.
And for those lawmakers that remain concerned like Strickland, it's unclear if they may try to counter the CEC timeline via their own legislative efforts. There are some notable exceptions for tires like used tires, motorcycle tires, and specialty tires. Jenny Hutt, News 8.
Yeah, what's crazy is that this is a regulation that is essentially almost 25 years in the making here, Chris.
Yeah, when I heard the tire shop owner, and by no means am I ridiculing him or anything like that, but when he says that this feels like it's so fast, I think that just goes to show that our attention span doesn't go back 25 years. It might feel like this is very fast for him, but as you said, and as we're going to go through here, this has been something that has been sort of in the making, or at least kind of in the early machinations, really since 2003, when the state of California basically outlined that this was something that they wanted to get done here on the book. So it might feel like all of a sudden this is fast, but this has been something that's in the works for quite some time.
Yeah, I think a better way to describe it would be like a sudden revival.
Yes.
Not
I think that's a
necessarily.
great.
This wasn't
I think
an
that's a
idea
great,
that just came out
Yeah.
of nowhere. This is something that the state had been trying to do for a long time.
Yep.
There was a couple, valleys and troughs when it comes to the momentum that it
Right.
took to get us to this spot, however.
Yeah. So let's go through that timeline. This was a law. This is all based on a law that was originally passed by the California legislature back in 2003, directing the Energy Commission, to create tire standards.
CEC.
Yeah, CEC. State paused those efforts after Congress, because if you notice, we're dealing with this now with the federal government trying to sort of intercept a lot of maybe some of the regulations that get put in place by California, but that also happened back in 2007. Congress in 2007 directed the NHTSA to create a national tire efficiency rating system. When no federal framework materialized, California restarted its own rulemaking back in 2020.
Yeah, so they thought
They thought there was
this
going to
is
be a national.
This is going to be a regular
Yeah.
standard. This
That's
is
the
something
National
that-
Highway Traffic and Safety Administration, by the way.
The Bureau of the Department of Transportation. So yeah, they essentially said, okay, well, this is something that we've been trying to do for a while, but our efforts are essentially null and void if we get the federal government to do it themselves. Let's take a back seat. Let's watch to see what the federal government does. Nothing
came to
comes
fruition,
of that. It's interesting to see that this was something that they waited nearly 13 years to decide. Now, what we don't have now in our reporting is, was this an ongoing negotiation by federal regulators and Congress to try to get this going? And it took 13 years of patiently waiting until 2020 was that time in which they decided to finally take this up again. This is something that we're not entirely sure of at this point. But yeah, they sat back and they waited nearly a decade and a half to see what would materialize out of that. And once we saw 2020 come around, they realized that the waiting here is done. We have this law on the books, and it's essentially lying dormant, so let's revitalize it.
Yeah, and this is also now, I think for a lot of people, it's all about timing, right? That's essentially the theme of our conversation right now, is that it's been in the works, but a lot of the reaction right now is based on the timing and what is currently going on. You heard from the one state lawmaker who was, of course, criticizing the Energy Commission, which I believe is meant to be a nonpartisan commission. But, of course, a lot of things get lumped into, especially when you're talking about criticisms of what the state does here, particularly in California. There's the sort of partisan nature of that attack. But this is coming at a time when, yes, a lot of the focus from Democrats nationally, and yes, even to an extent here in the state of California, has been affordability. This is coming at a time when there are high gas prices. Granted that it was started with the Republican administration, the Trump administration, a lot of that having to do with the war in Iran, but also here in California, we have the gas tax, which has been a very notable, controversial figure, which has also added to the affordability crisis. This is also coming as a Republican-led federal government moves to undermine other California fuel efficiency and emissions efforts, and it builds on existing California vehicle rules, tailpipe emissions limits, brake pad toxic metal restrictions, EV fleet transition mandates, and others. But I think another part of this conversation that many people don't really understand is what is making some tires more fuel efficient than others, Jack.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be the biggest thing, because you're going to see that dollar amount rise if this comes to fruition. You saw, I think the first phase was $6.
Yeah.
The second phase was $26.
$26, yeah.
Now, what we were talking about while the package was rolling off camera was, how is that going to be the actual reality of it?
Yeah.
That's something that we're anxious to see, whether or not that's good anxious or bad anxious. We'd be happy to see $6 extra, but whether or not that comes to fruition or not is going to be a completely different question. We'd have to wait until 2029 to see whether or not that's the case. But it's important to know, and I think, whether you are for this or against this, I think it's good to just know what is it that would make something more expensive. And I think that's an important conversation to have here, because this is being proposed, this is being sold to the public in the name of environmental efficiency here. So
Yes.
how do your tires achieve that? How does the condition do that? Because we think of the engine, we think of the fuel type, and while those are key factors into the fuel efficiency and the environmental carbon impact of your vehicle, it doesn't complete the full picture. There are other factors that exist outside in the periphery of the general functions of your car that contribute to its overall carbon footprint.
Yeah, because the Energy Commission, I did this story earlier this week as well too, as part of our midday show, and the conversation, and I don't want to repeat something that was in Jenny Huff's package, but alas, I might end up doing that, which is that a lot of the defense from the Energy Commission and the commissioners about the rise in cost, regardless of whatever the true cost may end up being, is that they believe that the fuel savings will offset those instant cost increases to tires. It is not just the emissions that we are all benefiting from, but they also believe that because your vehicle will be more fuel efficient, you'll also have savings to your wallet. They likened it to what happened with the energy efficiency standards that went into, for instance, a lot of the appliances in your home that California upgraded as well too, that some folks have said have led to less expensive energy bills and so forth like that.
Yeah, so multiple different things that go into a tire that can affect the fuel efficiency of your vehicle. The first one we'll start off with is something called rolling resistance. So what is rolling resistance? Well, essentially that is a form of measurement that determines how much a tire deforms under pressure from the road. Again, these are filled with air.
Yeah.
These are essentially balloons in a certain way, shape, or form. They're inflatable. And when you expose pressure on that, you do see if it is deflated to a certain extent. That's a good way to visualize it. You do see the air that is inside shift upwards because there is that downward pressure from the car and the upward pressure from the road. So the more squish that you see on your car, and if, maybe you've been thinking, I got to put air in my tires, go out to your driveway, go out to the parking lot of your apartment complex, wherever you may be living, or wherever you might be right now, and take a look at it. And you'll see that squish on the bottom part of it, right under your rim. The more squish means the more energy that is needed to keep the wheel turning, which in turn equals more fuel burned. So again, another good comparison is pedaling a bike under inflated tires. If you are a biker or a cyclist or whatever, if your children are, you will see that extra effort on a level surface. You will see that change in effort if it is an inflated tire versus a deflated tire.
Yeah, I would also challenge anyone. It's not just bikes. If anyone has for instance, like a jogging stroller with a 30-pound toddler in it, when those tires aren't inflated.
Exactly.
Yeah, those uphill walks are a little bit more energy spent, if you will.
Yeah, very much so. So,
it makes sense.
Yeah. So just to visualize the scientific concept that we're talking about, the physical concept. So replacement tires typically have more rolling resistance than factory tires.
Yeah, this was interesting.
Because automakers prioritize efficiency to meet emissions rules, while consumers buying replacements often prioritize price. So we're going to expand on that too in a different way here, because and I'll let you talk about the next phase of some of the key differentiators that you see when you're getting a car from a dealership versus when you've had the car for 6 or 8 months or so and you're looking to replace your tires, is that the automakers usually get specific tires that are meant to achieve a certain purpose, whether that is to meet those emission rules that are either set by the state, either set by the federal government, but it's also reflective of what car ownership feels like and what car ownership is all about. Because anyone who knows a car, we were just, we were joking about it, but it does speak to a really true thing. Car ownership can be an incredibly stressful thing to own.
Yep.
You are buying a depreciating asset the moment that you get it off the lot. Oftentimes you're financing the car, so you're already spending money monthly. If you don't have a warranty, or if your warranty is expired, or if you don't have good insurance, you're constantly putting in money for maintenance over a long period of time. And not to be Jerry Seinfeld on the stand-up thing, it's always the worst time when you have to get your car fixed. I have the worst luck. Every time I move, my check engine light goes on, and I have to take it in. So I'm spending all this money to either transport the car, get a U-Haul and whatnot, and then it just comes on, and I got to go take it in. Now I realize that I need something on my my carburetor fixed, or before I moved to Florida from Orange County, California, I had a radiator problem. So it
always strikes.
Just my luck. It's one of those things. So people understand that the stresses. So when you look at a thing like my tires, there are it's not inconceivable. It's in fact expected that these consumers are going to heavily put price on the forefront of their decision making, as well as obviously fuel efficiency and some of these other things. But price is a huge factor that everyone's going to consider here on car ownership.
Call me ignorant, but I came to realize only in my 30s that I am going to put so much more money into this car than I will ever spend buying this car, right? Like that I currently have. Even if I pay off my car, like I will end up in terms of maintenance and everything like that, always end up spending like probably equal to or more. And that is just mind-boggling to me versus like how much money you can get back. Like it is such a depreciating asset beyond even just the actual like what I buy it for, what I sell it for. You mentioned always at the worst time. We had back-to-back trips to LAX like from like a 1 year to the next year where we had like oil leaking problems. Like on a pretty recently like average to new car. Like things always happen. So one of the things when doing the story earlier this week, switching gears here, pun intended, that really made that, like speaking of my ignorance, I did not know this to be true. You know, we're talking about the tires and the science behind the fuel efficiency. I had no idea that the tires that are on a brand new car, or maybe even a car that you buy from a dealership that might be used, but that those tires are the ones that obviously now the state is pushing to be bought as replacement tires. Like they're saying they need to have the same standards. I had no idea that basically you were getting the best in terms of fuel efficiency tires when you buy your car, and that every tire you then buy afterwards is essentially a less efficient version of those tires. I had no idea. Yeah. Like I thought the tires were all the same. I mean, I'm not a car guy. So the California Energy Commission made that a large part of these regulations. They're arguing that automakers equip their vehicles with tires that you can't buy from your normal retailer. If you go to Firestone, those tires, even though they say Firestone, they are not the same tires, replacement versus what they come with when you buy them. Even the make and model name, as I said, is the same. Automakers can request alterations to their base models, and this can include shallowing the tread or even using different tread compounds, which can reduce the squish, the squirm, if you will, the drag, and more importantly, make test drivers feel more confident behind the wheel. You ever heard that this is a quiet drive on this car? You know, that this is, you see the fuel efficiency sticker when you go to buy that car, but this comes at the expense of longevity. Those tires oftentimes are not, they don't last quite as long as those replacement tires. So the law, if this is obviously something that this was passed, but would only govern what retailers are allowed to sell, not what you are allowed to do to your car. Other notable exceptions, as you mentioned previously, include tires, or maybe Jenny mentioned this, but used tires,
she did as well,
motorcycle tires, and specialty tires. Yep. So we do want to make that clear. Obviously, used tires are kind of always a gambit, but we do realize that there's a huge cost savings when it comes to that. But that was one of the things that the whole idea that basically when you buy your new car, you'll never have as good of tires as your brand new car. That those oftentimes like those are literally like not sold on the market. And that's not to say that you can't buy like, you know, $500 tires and then be as fuel efficient, but the same make, model, etc. That those that you can find them, but they'll be like, you know, they just won't be as fuel efficient. I did not realize that was part of the game, so to speak.
Yeah, you know, and you know, as I'm not a car guy either, except the fact that I like for mine to work and I like mine to take me to the places that I want to
I've always said if I didn't have to drive, I would legitimately just like if it cost me the same amount to have someone take me to work and to where I need to go every day, I would do it in a heartbeat.
Yeah, you know, there's always, you know, I love the freedom of a car. You know, I love all of that stuff, but
I'm a passenger prince.
It can be you're a passenger prince. I try to be. I love to drive. I don't like all of the frustrations that are associated with car ownership and all that. Like if I'm going on a road trip or something, no matter who it's with, I will volunteer to drive the whole entire way.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm gonna need to do a road trip with you then, buddy, because
I drove from Denver to Los Angeles in one day one time.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I did it in one day. I left at, I want to say I left at 5 a.m.
Yeah.
And I got to Los Angeles at like 6 or 7 p.m. in there. And then I dropped my friend off at LA and I drove down to Orange County and all that. Wow. So that was an extra hour 15 leg on it. So, you know, I like it. But what I think is important to realize here, and what's important ask ourselves about what is going to be the effects, because we understand that this is something that is done primarily for the purposes of environmental regulation, environmental efficiency, reducing the carbon footprint, but it's also being pitched on an economic front.
Yes.
We are being told that you are going to pay more on your tires eventually.
Yeah, but less at the pump.
But less at the pump. And what I know, and I don't want to generalize here, but from what you just told me about yourself and what I know about myself in terms of my relationship with cars in particular, is I hear a constant flood of information whenever I'm at a car dealership, wherever I'm at a mechanic, whether I'm talking to someone who is literate in car talk. And what you'll realize is there is just so much that goes into the makeup, the specificities of each different make in each different model, that it can be so overwhelming. I don't need to know the difference between a V12 or whatever it is, or the horsepower of a car or whatnot. All of those technical terms and all that is something that I just, it's not my niche. No. It's not something I pay attention to. So when I'm going there, I want it told in dollars and cents.
Yep.
And I think that is what a lot of people are going to want to say here, because, a car can be a hobby. A car can be, it can be a prized possession. It could be a collector's item. But I think for the majority of people here in California, it is a means of transportation, which is what it was brought to. This is what we do to pick up our kids from school. It's what we do to go to work. It's what we do to run our errands. It's what we do to do leisurely activities, go on a vacation and whatnot. So, and we also understand the contemporary context right now of affordability.
Yeah.
So I think what it's going to be interesting to see what this looks like as we go forward, because this is, again, as you mentioned, while this is something that has been going on for 25 plus years, we are seeing costs at the pump go up at astronomical rates from what we saw in January because of this conflict. We're seeing affordability on every level go up. We've been dealing with years of inflation. Is this going to be a further stress, and how are the people going to react to it?
I will say, just anecdotally, when I did my vertical video, which many of you probably saw on the social channels on this, I went through, looked at the comments, and vast majority of them, if not, I did not find anybody who said yippee, right? Oftentimes with these types of stories, they are extremely unpopular. This is akin to, I think, making a child eat their vegetables. And by no means am I sort of opining for the Energy Commission. This is my observations from having done stories like this in the past when it comes to trying to make things more energy efficient that comes with upfront costs. I do liken it to making a kid eat their vegetables, because initially you get the temper tantrum, so to speak. You get a lot of people complaining. Here's California at it again. Why are things getting more expensive here in the state? And that is a lot of the reaction that we're seeing. Now, I'm not going to be a genie or a prediction expert here and tell you that all of a sudden that this will end up being a cost savings for you at the pump. I think there's legitimate criticism about, you're telling me it's going to cost me X amount of money more, to switch to these tires. You're saying it's going to save this amount of emissions, which might be negligible, maybe a huge impact. We'll have to see. But then I'm going to maybe see some fuel savings. I understand the frustration, because if people are not able to go from X, Y to Z, I get that. And that's what we're hearing. But I also do think that there was a lot of similar outrage with a lot of similar things that were done that did end up saving people money in the long run. And what I'm talking about, of course, is a lot of appliances that were shifted, updated with energy efficiency compliance and things like that. And a lot of people did have these very similar complaints. Only here in California can I not use my stove from the 1930s. And why is it that I'm not able to do this? And the washing machine that I've had is amazing. If I need to buy a new one, I want the same model. I don't want this, new model that's energy efficient. Why this, that, and the other? And then years go by and we don't hear those complaints anymore, because people are realizing that, there is a bit of savings. Again, that is not me advocating in any way for saying that that's what's going to be the case here. But that is from the almost 10 years that I've been here, based on the reporting that I've seen and done, that is sometimes what does happen. Will that happen in this case? Of course, remains to be seen.
Yeah,
We'll have to see.
And yes, and the truth can be said on the opposite side of it, because we're still
There are
seeing
a lot of times that have made things like the gas tax much more expensive
That was
for people.
Sorry,
yeah.
You took the words right
Yeah.
out of my mouth. No, that's
Yeah.
good, because we're on the same page here.
Yeah.
We're hearing this because, of course, we're the news. We're covering these elections. We see this be something that is being relitigated in real time on the debate stage. So yes, there are examples in which you see initial pushback on some sort of energy efficiency regulation that has, as time has gone on, subsided. But you also are seeing certain debates that have been reignited and are probably as strong as they ever have here in the public discourse. So a lot of it will have to do with how are you messaging this? Because again, we're just going off of social media comments, and we understand the biases and the priorities that could go, because I was taking a look at our YouTube videos from the story and all that, and just trying to get a gauge of how people were initially reacting to it on our end. We know that that's not indicative to the
larger,
macro and what that is, but that's a good gauge to see, is this drawing a reaction?
Yeah.
Is this what we're seeing? So we're going to address it here and at least acknowledge that there is pushback on it, at least from what we can see so far. Whether or not that's something that keeps up, that's going to be something we're going to have to see in the future, because we are given estimates right now.
Yeah.
And these estimates aren't always reflective of reality.
We got a lot of estimates about the gas tax. You're absolutely right to bring that up, and I think that, like, right here, if anybody's driven on you come off the 163 in Balboa, you got a Chevron over on like Balboa, and I don't want to say that this is Mercury. Forgive me if I don't even know the intersections of a neighborhood that I've been driving in for 10 years. But basically, you get off the 163, you get off on Balboa, and you're driving through potholes. You are driving through potholes, and if those local roads are even eligible for gas tax funds to fix roads, etc., obviously the optics are this. You got a Chevron over on Balboa to get back on the 163 that's charging upwards of like almost $6 a gallon.
I know which one you're talking about.
And I think a lot of people, because we're now playing devil's advocate, right? A lot of people are having a hard time justifying that $6 a gallon gas, being told that that's going to help fund our roads while driving through potholes. And I think that is something that we did see play out on the debate stage. You heard candidates like Javier Becerra, who's now the Democratic nominee, who had defended the gas tax, saying that it is helping with our roads. And I think in large part, a lot of people are saying, I'm not really seeing it.
And we used to see that, criticisms of the gas tax were something that you didn't see on that side of the debate stage.
Yeah.
That's changed now.
That's changed,
We saw Matt
Mm-hmm.
Mahan start to
And
take
Katie Porter.
And Katie Porter as well. Yes, that's correct. Really start to reassess what the gas tax looks like. So, all that is to say that, people can buy into stuff like this, but they want to see results out of it. Whether or not this is something that will deliver on that, we have no idea. This is 2029.
Yeah.
We have no idea what this is going to look like. We have no idea if this is something that actually comes to fruition, because that's 3 years from now. We don't know. We're hearing from tire manufacturers. Of course, we're hearing from lawmakers in Sacramento who are vowing to delay, to impede on this. Whether or not they are successful or not, that's another question. There is a law on the books that gives this commission the authority to do that. So is this block here feckless? In their attempt here?
You've got a hybrid vehicle.
I do have a hybrid.
Does that require special tires by any means? Because
not necessarily.
I was about to propose this idea that like there might be a section of drivers who don't see the benefit of that, and that's those who drive EVs.
Not necessarily. That's another thing we were talking about with the mileage tax that's in the pipeline right now, where you're seeing
EVs sort of
EV
escape
drivers
the gas
saying,
tax.
"Hey, we thought the gas tax was, we followed the cost benefit analysis of this rule, which was to push me towards it. Now, do I have to pay this tax?" That's questions that EV owners are asking themselves.
And now I'm just thinking, because again, I'm not really well versed with vehicles to begin with, as you might know. So maybe this is not the time to sort of hypothesize about this, but I have to imagine being an EV owner, seeing this and being like, wait a second, I don't pump fuel. I'm not going to see. Yes, I will see the benefit of potentially less emissions in my air, but that's not what I can put on paper in terms of dollar and cents. Now my tires are going to be more expensive, but I'm not going to see the fuel pump savings that are being promised by the Energy Commission. That's my last point on this topic. I promise, though, we are pretty happy that we were able to keep this going for about 30 minutes here. It was a really good conversation, Jack.
We do a good job here.
Very good.
Sometimes 90 minutes we're like, oh my God, is there enough to talk about? And then Slow
to
news
know.
days. Sometimes we're stressing before we hit 9 a.m. We're
Yeah.
like, do we have enough to talk about today? Lo and behold, this is like 10
Tires.
minutes longer than I expected
Yeah.
it to be. So
Longer than the Shane Gillis tire episodes, by the way, which are only like 22 minutes.
exactly. So take
We
that,
did 30
Shane.
minutes. Yeah, take that, Shane.
So, but again,
Yeah.
just to put a button on it,
Yep.
if this is something, you have 3 years to save up for
Yes.
that first set. So,
But
try
I
to
will say,
pocket that money as
yeah,
much as you
but
can. If
don't
you-
drive on those tires for 3 years. If you need them replaced like I do now, get them done now.
Yeah. Try
exactly.
to try to strategically
Yeah,
buy that last set before the rules go
Yeah.
into effect, so you
Oh
can
my
maximize
gosh.
it.
Yeah, I got my stepdad on my ear right now. What are you doing? Put the penny in the tread. See what's going on.
Yeah,
there.
right. Where's Lincoln's head at?